Scroll 1. The blood at the high hearth. The silver-veined pillars of 𝕼𝕼𝕼𝕼𝕼𝕼 stood tall against the twilight, catching the dying amber rays of an autumn sun that would never rise over a peaceful realm again. Inside the great hearth hall of the seventh realm, the air thick with the scent of roasted stag, spiced meat, and burning cedar, a fragile peace mask clung to the faces of the high court. King Icarus sat upon the central throne of carved white stone, his brow lined with the invisible crown of an emperor who had held the 𝕊𝕼𝕼𝕼𝕼𝕼𝕼 in a delicate chokehold for 40 years. Beside him sat Queen Aphrodite, her poise ethereal, her eyes dark pools of deep, unreadable wisdom. Further down the dais, Princess Isolde swirled her silver goblet, watching the red wine lap against the metal lips. Her heart felt as heavy as the stone battlements above. She could feel the gaze of her stepbrother, Prince Valerius, sitting directly across from her. He was meticulously cleaning his fingernails with the tip of a gilded dagger, his shoulders taut, his posture that of a coiled viper waiting for a misstep. Near the heavy oak doors, the stoic lead archer, Winston, stood in absolute stillness, his hand resting casually but purposefully near the pommel of his short sword. Then there was Valentin. Isolde's gaze shifted to him, and her breath caught in her throat. He sat quietly at the edge of the royal table, a shadow among the brilliant silks of the court. To the rest of Albion, he was the stray stepchild born with a dark magical taint in his veins, a lingering anomaly. But to Isolde, he was the boy she had fled into the wilderness with during the chaotic skirmishes of her youth. He was the one who had held her hand in the dark caves of the neutral valleys, promising her that the world outside their hidden sanctuary didn't matter. They had shared a forbidden, silent tryst built on the pretense that he was merely a refugee of fate, a regular mortal fleeing the same fires she was. A servant stepped forward, leaning over Valentin's shoulder to pour a fresh stream of dark, heavy vintage into his glass. The servant's hand slipped slightly, the sharp edge of a silver platter catching the flesh of his own thumb. A single, dark crimson bead of blood welled up, dripping slowly onto the white linen tablecloth. The change in Valentin was instantaneous, horrific, and absolute. A low, animalistic hiss tore from his throat. The pupils of his eyes dilated until the pale irises vanished into pitch-black pools. His upper lip pulled back, exposing elongated, razor-sharp ivory fangs that gleamed under the torchlight. The elegant, melancholy boy vanished, replaced by a predator whose ancient, blood-starved nature broke through his illusion like shattered glass. He lunged across the table, his hand clapping around the servant's wrist with bone-snapping force. "Monster!" Prince Valerius roared. With a deafening scrape of wood against stone, Valerius vaulted over the high table. His gilded dagger was already sheathed, replaced by the heavy broadsword he tore from his hip. The blade flashed in a crescent arc of cold steel, shearing through Valentin's silver-threaded tunic, missing his throat by mere fractions of an inch. "Get him out!" King Icarus thundered, his voice vibrating through the stone rafters. "Guard the doors. Let no such abomination taint the high hearth." Winston moved like lightning, his bow drawn in a single fluid motion, 3 arrows notched and pointed directly at Valentin's chest. The high lords and ladies shrieked, scattering like birds as blades crashed and wine spilled like fresh gore across the floor. Valentin recoiled from Valerius's blade, his fangs still bared, his dark eyes locking onto Isolde through the chaos. There was no apology in his gaze, only a raw, territorial hunger and a deep, agonizing sorrow. He realized, in that single heartbeat, that the lie was dead. "Flee, demon, or I shall pin your corpse to the stone," Valerius bellowed, his sword trembling with righteous fury as he advanced, driving Valentin back toward the high, open stained glass windows. With a final, lingering look at Isolde, Valentin leapt backward. He shattered the intricate glass, his body vanishing into the freezing, moonless night below. Isolde stood frozen, her hand pressed against her chest, feeling her own heart crack in two. The boy from the caves was gone. The Dark Lord had awakened. Scroll 2, The Heresy of the Maroon Deer. The shattered glass from the high window had not yet been swept away when Winston requested an immediate, closed-door audience in the inner sanctum. The room was small, suffocatingly hot, lit only by a solitary iron brazier that cast long, skeletal shadows against the damp stone walls. Only 4 people stood within the circle of light: King Icarus, whose face looked 10 years older; Princess Isolde, her knuckles white as she gripped the back of a chair; the lead archer Winston; and Esmeralda, the rightful heir to the throne, whose severe, analytical eyes never left Winston's face. "Speak plainly, Archer," Esmeralda commanded, her voice cutting through the heavy silence like a razor. "The court is in a frenzy. My brother Valerius demands an immediate crusade into the woods. Tell us what you know before he marches our men into a slaughter." Winston lowered his hood, his face lined with the deep exhaustion of a man who had walked through hell and brought the ash back on his boots. "The prince's anger is exactly what they want," Winston said, his voice a low, gravelly whisper that made the hairs on Isolde's arms stand up. "Your Graces, what happened tonight was no random slip of a beast's control. Valentin has been building a kingdom of his own. For the past year, I did not merely patrol the borders. I lived in the dark. I infiltrated the heresy." King Icarus leaned forward, his heavy hands gripping the iron rim of the brazier. "The Maroon Deer cult. You swear they are real?" "They are real, and they are everywhere," Winston stated flatly. "They are an infection growing silently within the marrow of every single biome in Albion. I sat in their hidden groves. I wore their rotted leather masks. They do not see Valentin as a monster, they see him as a messiah. They believe the 7th realm is a stale, arrogant prison that chokes the true magic of the world. Their doctrine is simple: the dark forest of Penumbra must expand, swallow the light, and rightfully dominate all of Albion." Isolde felt a cold dread settle deep into her stomach. "And Valentin? Is he their leader?" "He is their vanguard, Princess," Winston replied, his eyes turning to her with a look of profound pity. "He has spent months turning the desperate, the outcasts, and the dying into an army of high-born vampires. They do not hunt like wild beasts. They march like legionnaires. They are massing in the deepest shadows of Penumbra, and they are preparing to strike the heart of the crown." Esmeralda paced the perimeter of the room, her heavy leather boots clicking rhythmically against the floorboards. "If the cult has roots in every biome, we are already surrounded. If we march our armies out to fight Valentin in the woods, the hidden cultists within our own walls will open the gates from the inside." "We are blind in our own house," King Icarus muttered, his fist clenching until his knuckles turned as pale as the stone walls. "The rot has gone too deep.